Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the 27th inning. I am your host, Michael Grinnell, and for our first guest on the show, we'll be hearing from a 14-year veteran of Major League Baseball, former Diamondbacks, Brewers, and Blue Jays first baseman Lyle Overbay. An 18th round pick in the 1999 draft out of the University of Nevada, Reno, Overbay spent most of 13 years playing in Arizona, Milwaukee, and Toronto, with brief stints with the Pittsburgh Pirates, New York Yankees, and Atlanta Braves towards the end of his career. He finished his career with a .266 average and 151 home runs, but he was a prolific doubles hitter in his prime, leading the majors with 53 doubles in 2004 with Milwaukee, while finishing his career with 356 doubles. Now, nearly 7 years after his final game, Overbay is spending his time as the head coach for a high school baseball team in Washington. I spoke with him about memories of his Major League debut, some of the coaches that made an impact on him as he climbed his way up through the minor leagues, and the players and fan interactions that still stick out in his mind years later. We'll be back in just a moment, and when we return, you'll hear from former first baseman Lyle Overbay. We're here with 14-year Major League Baseball veteran first baseman Lyle Overbay. Lyle, thank you for being here with us today.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. So there's no better place to get started than just talk a little bit about growing up, what got you into baseball, and just kind of talk about playing through high school and into college.
Yeah, hey, I always tell everybody, everybody's like, oh, when did you start? And I said, as soon as I could walk, I guess. My grandma would throw me wiffle balls, I'd hit them and I'd go get them, and just, it all started, the madness started then. So, but I've always told everyone too, is that I love every aspect of the game, where, I love playing sports, but football, I didn't enjoy practicing. It wasn't fun, but you don't get the adrenaline rush on that Friday night kind of thing, in baseball or any other sport. So there are some good and bad, but baseball, I could hit all day. I could take ground balls all day. It didn't matter what. I loved everything about it. So it was truly a love relationship, I guess.
So you went to University of Nevada, Reno, and you were drafted by the Diamondbacks in the 18th round of the 99 draft. Talk a little bit about that moment when you heard that you were going to be going to Arizona.
Yeah, that was it was interesting because high school I played outfield. I pitched a little bit in high school, obviously, because you kind of end up just out of lack of pitching. So, but I played outfield in college, and when I got drafted, they called me and said, hey, you got drafted, Arizona Diamondbacks, 18th round. You're going to Missoula and you're going to play first base. And I was like, you got a first baseman's glove? Because I don't. So, and they're like, yeah, we'll have one there or whatever. But, you look back and see things that happened to you. And that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me as far as making that move to first base, because that gave me an opportunity to play, and I was in front of some really good coaching at the time too. So I was able to get a lot of knowledge real quick, and was able to pick it up and do that. But I look back at sometimes in my career too, and I look at other guys' careers, and just looking at some of the coaching that I had, it was there. A lot of them are in the big leagues, and a lot of them are credible too, just because of what they've done. So I've been very fortunate, and I look back and be like, oh man, some of them guys don't get that. So I was very, very fortunate on that aspect of it.
Who are some of those coaches that you would really point to as helping you on your trip up through the minor leagues?
Yeah, but the first one was probably Bobby Dickerson. He was our infield coordinator for the Diamondbacks, going through the minor leagues, and he was Buck Showalter's guy, and you see it. That's because Buck was the manager for the Diamondbacks at the time, and he really took my game to the as far as defensive wise, took it right from the get go and just gave me real good tips that I still use today, and I teach my kids that kind of stuff. So, and you see him; he's in the big leagues. He's been in the big leagues, and now he's done well for him. I mean, all my hitting coaches, a lot of them are still in the big leagues, or have been, and or made kind of a career with it. Ty Van Berkeley, Rick Shue. I mean, these guys have. I've had them for minor league hitting coaches, and they've been in the big leagues now for a long time. So they're doing something right. So it's I just very fortunate that I was able to do that and be in front of those guys too.
So September 19th, 2001, you make your first major league at bat. You get a single pinch hitting for Jay Bell against the Colorado Rockies. Talk about that moment. Were there a lot of jitters for you making that first trip to the plate in your major league career?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to kind of lead up on the story, there's some kind of good stuff. I was Jack Cust was kind of our big prospect, and he was kind of the next big guy. So it was kind of like he was going to get the opportunity. I mean, it wasn't. I just when Bob Melvin, he comes down and he gets about halfway down the dugout and he's like, "Hey, you're hitting next inning." And I'm like, I turned around to look to see where Jack Cuss was, because I was like, wait a second, what? You're not talking to me, you're talking to Jack Cuss, because none of us had we were all getting call ups, but we had never had an at bat, and so the opportunity to get that opportunity just kind of was like, oh, so. I think I led off the inning. I can't. It's been a long.
Yeah, you did.
I think I led off the inning, and I was so I I took the first pitch, and I was just like, you know what? And we were losing, so I just felt like he was gonna get me. He just didn't want to get behind on me, so I'm like, all right, I took a deep breath and kind of just he gave me a good pitch to hit, and I've done that plenty of times where you get a good pitch to hit and you still don't do anything with it. So I was able to line it into kind of the right center, right over the second baseman's head, and for a base hit. But I think the biggest thing that I remember, because I can't remember who I was talking to somebody about this, and I say I don't ever remember who I hit it off of, and I think it was Jay Powell, but the thing that I remembered was, I think there was one out, and I ended whoever was hitting behind me ended up grounding into a double play. So the game was over. We're in a playoff race. I mean, this is obviously they went on to win the World Series that year as the Diamondbacks, but this was kind of the first game back from September 11th as well. It was on Wednesday Night Baseball, I believe, or it was not Wednesday Night Baseball. It was on ESPN. So, so everyone, my whole family got to see it. But as I walked off the field, everybody in the big leagues, you see, if you ever watch it and pay attention, the home team or the winning team shakes hands out on the field. The other team packs their stuff up and they just go to the clubhouse. And I get emotional because Tony Womack and Matt Williams waited for me to come off the field and congratulate me. And I just showed me how those types of players have a big impact on it, and they knew how much of a big deal it was to get your first big league AB, let alone get a first base, your first base hit. So that is what I always remember, and it was pretty special.
It sounds like it.
I just for them to take the time off, and like I said, everybody else. And not saying that they're bad people, that has nothing to do with it, but it just shows you, what their character is, somewhat, and they knew how big of a deal it was, and it made a big deal to me.
So after that game, I believe you had one more game that season, one more appearance that season with Arizona, and then you didn't really get much more playing time until 2003. But just kind of talk a little bit about those first 3 years, bouncing between the minors and playing in Arizona.
Yeah, those are. I mean, obviously, I was kind of a September call up that first year, and I had played Double A the whole year before that. We had some pretty good first basemen. I was kind of log jammed. I mean, we had Mark Grace, Rubio Durazo. I mean, and those guys were both left-handed hitters. We also had Greg Colburn. So the two lefties kind of put me at logjam. But I always look back and be like, man, because Ron Hassey was our director of minor league operations at the time when I went to AAA, and because I went back to AAA. He was like, man, he's ready. He was advocating for me to be the guy, and they kind of maybe make a trade. It didn't happen, and I was and these are the moments that you look back on too and be like, hey, this was a big deal for me, because I learned Double A pitching and Triple A pitching is different. You got some more veteran pitchers that know how to pitch and locate and be able to throw different pitches. Where Double A, you had a lot of hard throwers and really hard curve balls and all that, but they didn't know how to pitch. So it really helped me. Obviously, it took me a whole nother year before I got the opportunity. But when I got to the big leagues, I was able to know how to make those adjustments. And I saw it in my career that some of these kids, they get called up and just because, and they don't know how to make the adjustments. And so I just look at it as a blessing in disguise as far as me being able to stay in the big leagues once I got there. And it could have taken me, like I said, an extra year or so, but it was definitely worth my while. So so that's where it was. And obviously the 2003 was my rookie year, and they traded for traded Rubio, and kind of left me kind of under the wings with Mark Grace, and I learned a lot from him too. So those are little small victories for my career that really helped me.
Talk a little bit about working with Mark Grace. I had reached out to some fans from the Diamondbacks fans, Blue Jays fans, and Brewers fans to see what they would want to know about you and your career. And one of the things that was brought up was they wanted to know what it was like with Mark Grace and how much he helped you with tutoring you and getting you started on your career.
Yeah, he did. I mean, just even being around him and learning. I mean, just watching him. I was a guy that I could watch something and then just kind of duplicate it or imitate it. So being able to have that at your becking call is pretty cool. I mean, a coach is going to hit you ground balls, where Mark Grace is taking ground balls with you. But I made the mistake of when we were taking ground balls, because usually we're standing right behind him, so then I step up right when he's done and take another ground ball. And I've seen a few ground balls, and I saw that this one was going to take a kind of a bad hop. And so I kind of moved out of the way, thinking that if Gracie didn't catch it, it wouldn't hit me. Well, that was the wrong thing to do, because he turned around. He's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, I don't. So then, I mean, literally probably 5 minutes later, I get a ground ball that took a bad hop, and it went through my legs, and he stood there, and it hit him off the shin, and he was hurting for days, but he did not move. And I mean, how bad do you feel with Mark Grace giving you all this knowledge, and then you just go and do that? So I felt so bad, but he stayed in there. So I was like, all right, well, he trusted me. So it was, I just couldn't believe it happened like 5 minutes later.
All right, so flash forward to off season 2003. You're part of a pretty large deal, large number of players going between Arizona and Milwaukee. Can you just talk a little bit about what it's like on your end as a player? As fans, like, we see these trades going and we instantly start thinking about, how's that going to affect our team that we are rooting for? But how does it affect you as a player? Like, when do you find out? And, what's the process of basically picking everything up and moving to a new team?
Yeah, I mean, it it did happen in the off season. So I was back home, so it wasn't too big of a drastic where you and I've been there as well, but so it wasn't as bad. But you kind of you try not to take it personal, but you do. I mean, it's like, oh man, they've kind of completely lost faith in you, and they don't like you anymore. And yeah, when I got drafted by the Diamondbacks, I was like, man, I'm going to be a Diamondback my whole life, yeah, kind of thing. So it was kind of a shock at first, but I did know it was coming. They really wanted a power right-handed hitter to protect Luis Gonzalez, and that was Richie Sexson. I mean, you couldn't get much better than that, right-handed power hitter like that. So I then I looked at it. You kind of look after you get the shock part of it. You look back and you look over, and it's like, okay, well, the next team you're going to really likes you because they traded for you. So they're not going to make that trade if they don't see anything in you. So I got a second opportunity, and I wanted to make sure that I took advantage of that because not a lot of guys get that second opportunity. So I was going to take full advantage of it and do everything I could to prove that the Diamondbacks made a mistake and the Milwaukee Brewers made the right decision.
Talk a little bit about what it was like playing in Milwaukee and like interacting with the fans. That was one of the things also that I got feedback from fans online is it seemed like there was a lot of positive thoughts about you and your time playing in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I loved it there. They really they love the game. I mean, they it doesn't matter if the opposing team makes a great play. They just love watching the game. They know how hard it is, and they just want you to hustle and play the game hard. And so that was always easy for me. I always wanted to do that, and obviously sometimes I'll fall short of it, but for the most part, that's what I did from the beginning. So it was very easy for me. But yeah, I think I had a kind of a good breakout year that first year. So it kind of put me on the map, I guess, more than anything. And yeah, they always had the Buckethead Brigade, and they kind of started doing the O chant. And I still feel like that's one of the coolest things ever when I think it was my second time through, I was up. We were in the playoff race, and I had a chance to drive in the game winner, but I looked at, it was weird that because you sometimes hear it, but then when you get in the box, you don't. It's weird. It blocks out. You block it out, and but this time I kind of, I don't know, it was weird. I stepped out of the box or right before I stepped in, I looked up and like I said, I'm usually zoned in on the pitcher, and I looked down the kind of the right or left field line, and I just saw a ton of people. They would do the O, where they would put their arms up and do the O chant. And I was like, I kind of enjoyed the moment. And it kind of relaxed me, I guess, a little bit. and then I kind of got locked back in. I was like, okay. And I knew that they were going to try to, because the inning before I had the same opportunity to kind of get the go ahead run. And I thought the guy was going to throw me a kind of a first pitch splitty because he had a really good splitty. So I ended up taking a fastball right down and away. And I was like, dang it. So I was like, all right, this guy, I think it was Diaz, or he was throwing 98, 90, 97, 98. So I was like, all right, he's going to, and it had good sync to it too. So they wanted to try to get the ground ball double play. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to be ready for this one. So it was kind of nice to be able to hit it into the gap and score the run and win the game. So that was kind of a cool moment for me as a player.
A couple years later, you're traded again, this time to Toronto. And this is something that I received feedback to ask you about. 2006 in Toronto, the Blue Jays made some big moves. They got you, they got BJ Ryan, AJ Burnett, Troy Glaus, and it seemed like there was a lot of expectations from the fan base for how Toronto would do that year. Talk a little bit about that 2006 season in Toronto, and what were the expectations that you guys were feeling in the clubhouse?
Yeah, I mean, it was go time. I mean, we were going to give the Yankees and the Red Sox a run for their money, and I felt like we had the team. I mean, we crushed the ball that year. I mean, as far as up and down the lineup, I do think we were a little low on pitching at sometimes, but we just, for some reason, and you start realizing that you have to beat the teams in your division. And we really had trouble with Tampa, and Tampa wasn't that great either. They hadn't got to their stride yet. They were getting close, but we would go down there and they would just bring out the worst in us. And those are the games that you look back and it's like, man, if you're going to compete for a division title, you have to beat those guys in the division, and we didn't. I mean, you look at our record the beginning of the season, and it's really good because we're playing the American League Central. I mean, we crushed the American League Central. And I mean, if we were in the American League Central, we probably would have ran away with it just because we played good against those guys. And but you get in our own division, you can't beat the Tampa Bay Rays, and then you're going up against the Yankees and the Red Sox consistently. It's just, I mean, we had a chance. I think it was early. I still remember like it was yesterday. We took 3 out of 4 from the Yankees, and we were going on a 10-day road trip. And I think we were like a game back or a couple games back. And we went to Seattle, lost 2 out of 3 there, went to Oakland, lost 3 out of 4 there. And then we went to the Yankees. We had an off day. We went to New York, and I think we got swept. And that kind of put us in our place, so to speak. And that was frustrating because we were right where we wanted to be going into that. And Seattle was a down team too. Oakland was a struggling team, and we just, I don't know, we just didn't play very well. I mean, we had a couple games where we won a couple games, and then we end up losing them later in the innings. So, a couple walk-off type stuff. So it was, that was that was the dagger, so to speak.
Yeah.
But we had good teams, and we had some success when we beat them 3 out of 4 there. And that was in Toronto. But we kind of were like, hey, yeah, we're the real deal. And then that happened. It's like, okay, maybe we're not. So it was kind of frustrating sometimes because I wanted to bring that division title to Toronto. We wanted to be that team that changed the way the direction went. And we weren't able to do that.
Talk a little bit about what it's like in the clubhouse when you guys are in the midst of a skid like that. Like, how do you guys go about it to try and turn things around?
Yeah, for the most part, we were still together. We were a tight ship and a tight clubhouse. So when we lost that game in Oakland and we were heading to New York, we actually had an off day, and it's like, and we were like, hey, okay, it didn't work out the way we wanted, but we still have an opportunity to, because New York was in front of us. So it's like, we take 3 out of them, we'll be right back where we want to be. So it was like, let's don't panic and don't do that. And I mean, it just, again, it didn't happen. I think for the most part, like I said, we didn't panic. We just couldn't get it done. And that's the kind of the frustrating part, because it's like, okay, well, you try to look at what we can do to make a change and all that. And it just, the little things, I think, were kind of made a big deal in our run. And that was something that we couldn't figure it out.
So after that, you ended up spending 5 seasons in Toronto, and then you had a couple of other seasons with some other teams: Pittsburgh, another stint with Arizona, Atlanta, New York, and then finished things off with Milwaukee. Just talk a little bit about some of those last few years of your career.
Yeah, those are the tough ones, because you get released from Pittsburgh, and then you get a second win, and you get an opportunity to go to playoffs with Arizona, and then next year you sign back with Arizona, and then you get released again. And that one was weird, I felt, because I was hitting 300. I was doing my job. I know Paul Goldschmidt, the only reason I signed back was because I wanted to win a World Series, and I thought that was probably our best opportunity to do that, because we had a really good team and we were bringing back everybody. So I felt like Paul Goldschmidt was going to just go off. So I was perfectly happy with my role, and I felt like that I was doing that. So that was kind of frustrating, but I was able to sleep that one off, because I knew that I was doing my job. So that was just a part of the game, as far as making moves for the Diamondbacks. But the Boston Red Sox, I went to spring training with them, and it was between a couple guys, and they end up choosing somebody else, and I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to get another team, because I got released 4 or 5 days before spring training got done.
Mm-hmm.
And my agent got to work and was like, hey, because Mark Teixeira got hurt, so the Yankees didn't have a first baseman. So I got a chance to kind of get in front of them, and that was one of the funnest things ever too. I mean, to get to play for the Yankees for a year. And but I just, at that point, I was like, okay, I might be done. And I was happy with that. I mean, I was fine with it, not happy, but I was fine with it. I felt like I gave it all. And that's, I think in 2014, my last year with Milwaukee, I felt like I pinched hit. That's kind of what my job was, for the most part. And I felt like I did that well, and I felt like I learned how to do that. The first couple times that I did that with other teams, it wasn't very successful, and I didn't really know what to do, how to do it. So that was, but 2014, I mean, I felt, and I tell everybody, because they're like, well, how did you know? And I said, because I always asked guys as well. I was like, well, how do you know when you're done, or when you're ready to be done, and that kind of thing. He's like, and everybody's like, you know what, you'll know. And that daily grind that I loved. I mean, getting up, going to the ballpark, just knowing that you got a chance to do something great, and be a part of that, as a team, whether I was in the lineup or not. You just have an opportunity to do something great. I love that. I mean, I loved it every day. And my last year, I dreaded every bit of it. I dreaded every day, just because I couldn't get to where I wanted to be. And I kept falling farther back, and I just felt like I was not giving my, the team the best chance to win. And I didn't want to hold on to something, because if I hold on to that, then another kid in the minor leagues doesn't get a chance. And I never wanted to hold on to that. And then every time I was missing a lot with my family, because um, I had a lot of, missing a lot of stuff. And at that time we had 5 kids. So, each year you miss, it's just another year that you miss with them. So it wasn't worth it to me. So that made my decision real easy.
Mhm.
I knew that I was going to be done, and I didn't get to win a World Series, but I had some great memories on the way. I did. I was on the team with the Diamondbacks, but I wasn't on the playoff roster in 2001, so didn't necessarily win that World Series. So, that's kind of why I was hoping to get another chance and help somebody do that.
You brought up Paul Goldschmidt before, and that was something that fans wanted to know. Was talk a little bit about working with Paul Goldschmidt. He's said in the past that he credits you with helping him out quite a bit with your time with him in Arizona.
Yeah, when I that was the thing, was when Arizona called and said, "Hey, love to bring you back," and I said, "Okay, I need to have a conversation with Paul," because I knew what he could do, and I knew that he would do it. It's just a matter of, what happened with me, and I won't change it for anything, but, I always felt like, they didn't necessarily give me the job. They always had, it's like, oh well, we've got Mark Grace to fill in, and like I said, it's not Mark Grace's fault at all. I don't blame him at all, and I don't blame the team for not doing that, because they don't know what they've got with me. But I I wanted to make it very clear to Paul that I'm coming on here just because I feel like we have a chance to win a World Series. And if I can come in and face a tough righty and give you the day off until you start getting, comfortable, then I'll do that. I mean, and I made it very clear to him that this was just a playoff thing, and I was gonna do everything I could to get him work, because him on the field every day is going to make this team way better than if I was on that team, or on that field. So I knew that, and I told it to him, and, I wanted to make sure that was the biggest thing. But I also got a chance to really, give him the advice that I got from Mark Grace, from all these great first basemen, the Greg Colbran. I mean, he was a righty, but I still listened to him, and so, it was always nice to be able to, take advantage of that and be like, oh, Gracie, what did I, this situation, Grace would always tell me, be a long hop from the bad hop, when you got a runners on first and second, you're trying to turn a double play. It's like you're because you're playing back. But I'd always get into these bad hops, and I'm like, how do I just didn't know how to make that adjustment. And all of a sudden I get back a little farther, and it was just a bad hop. But I had more time to make that play. It just, those are little things that obviously you make a big opportunity and make a big change. So, I was very, very positive with Goldschmidt, because I went through it too. I think one of the hardest things to do in baseball, in Major League Baseball, is to start the season, in the big leagues for your first time, because when you get called up in the middle of the summer, you're getting called up because you're feeling good, and it doesn't matter who you're facing. You'll still feel good, and you'll still have some success, just because you know where your swing is and you can make those adjustments. Well, you go into the big leagues, and they've kind of figured you out a little bit, and now you have to make adjustments. That's hard. And Paul struggled a little bit first, just because he didn't know where his swing was, and then he started doubting himself. And I'm like, dude, you're okay. It's going to get easier. I promise. And it did. I mean, it was like, oh, okay. But I think that was a big part for him, was just realizing that it was going to get easier. So just just keep putting the work in and just let it marinate. And he just took off, and it was fun to watch. I was excited. I was like, hey, I get a front row seat at this, until I got released.
All right, so before we start going and talk a little bit about your post-playing career, let's wrap up talking about your time in the majors. Talk a little bit about some of the guys that you've played with, the guys that you played against that really kind of stick out in your mind. You managed to play with several Hall of Famers in your career: Randy Johnson, Frank Thomas, Roy Halladay. Just talk a little bit about some of the guys that really stood out to you as great teammates or really hard opponents to face.
Yeah, there was. I mean, that's it's funny because you said great teammates and hard to face. I know two of them, and one's Mariano Rivera and one's Andy Pettit. So those guys, I got the opportunity, obviously, in New York to be their teammates, and they're one of my favorites. But that Mariano is Mariano, but he's very, you don't know a whole lot about him unless you're his teammate, and just knowing day to day and just the kind of person he is, it was you start realizing why the Yankees are so successful in that era, and a lot of it was him, a lot of it was Derek Jeter, that they show by example, but they also know that, here, I'll put you on my shoulders and we'll go. So it was those two guys were fun to get to know on a personal note, and personally. So I was very thankful that I got an opportunity with them. I got to play with Albert Pujols in the Arizona Fall League. We were on the same team, and I had never seen a display of hitting for a month and a half. And then when he won Rookie of the Year and he did what he did his rookie year, and then obviously he just kept doing it, it didn't surprise me. I was like, this guy was backspinning balls like there's no tomorrow off of really good pitchers. So I was like, he's gonna make a good career out of himself. It's crazy to see, because we were both in A ball at the beginning of the season, and I played against him there too. And but it was just crazy to see how big of a jump he made compared to not my jump wasn't very big at all. But it was those are the guys. But the fun part about playing first base is you get to talk to those guys, and you get to know them a little bit. So it's always nice to be able to do that. And I look back and be like, the second baseman or an outfielder, you don't get that opportunity to talk to all these guys. So I try to do that mostly just to distract them, but they got onto my game. They caught onto that and started paying attention.
All right, so at this point you've retired. What happens next for you after your final season?
Yeah, that's the scary part, because I see a lot of these guys get right back into it, and I'm like, the reason I got out was because of the time consumption. So I was scared, because I'm like, why am I different? So I wanted to make sure that I had something to kind of keep me busy, and I wanted to make sure that, because there was times that I was struggling, because you're so used to that lifestyle and moving and going and getting that adrenaline rush, that kind of thing. I mean, it was a shock. I mean, I was like, whoa, this is, but I also kind of stepped back and be like, okay, I got to let it marinate. I got to let it take its toll on you, just to, because it's something different. I'm like, it's not that it's bad. It's just, it's something that's completely different from what you're used to. So it's like, you got to get used to that, because playing minor league baseball was hard at first. I mean, it's always hard, but it gets easier. And so I just, that was my biggest thing, is just trying to not jump into something that I was going to regret. So I got to coach my kids. So that kept me busy. So I love it. I love and I enjoy, speaking life to them, speaking baseball, giving them my knowledge. So it's fun, fun for me, and sometimes it's fun for my kids. But I know that I try to back off on them sometimes, just because I know that they see me as dad and not a coach kind of thing. So I try not to coach them too much, because that's a good story too. My agent, he has two daughters, and he knows a little bit about soccer, and he's telling me this story, and I just start laughing, because he's like, he goes, wow, they just won't listen to me. And I said, Steve, let me tell you a little story. I said, we've been together for 12, 15 years. Yeah. I was like, you think I know a little bit about hitting, right? He's like, oh yeah, you're the best, whatever, yeah, that kind of thing. He's like, yeah, you know. I said, well, don't take it personal when your kids don't listen to you, because my kids don't listen to me when I talk hitting. He's like, all right, never mind. So he was like, if you can't get them to listen to you, then I got no shot. So it was, it's comical, but you learn those things real quick, that you have to do things different sometimes, and you still hold them accountable, but you got to know that they see you as dad, and not as coach. So I've had to make adjustments to that.
Yeah. So you're coaching high school baseball now. Talk a little bit about what that's like, going from your playing career to now a coach. Talk a little bit about the differences for you seeing that.
Yeah, well, that's for me. I'm like, I just want to make sure I don't screw anything up that screws them up. So I tell guys, I'm gonna just try to stay out of your way. But the commitment was I love that commitment, because you got your program. Whatever's dealt to you is what you deal with, and you give it your best. And so I just felt like the commitment for high school baseball was good. I didn't think college was good for me, because the recruiting process, you end up being on the road more. Professional, it's just not in the cards right now. So I just felt like high school it's a good opportunity for these kids. They're young. They're looking for young adults, men, especially these guys, to look after. I mean, I look at some of my old high school coaches, and they're some of my people that I try to imitate. So I just try to make it like that, and try to have some fun with it too. And just because high school is supposed to be fun, and you're supposed to, I mean, those are some of my funnest funnest days, was playing high school baseball, or just being in high school. So we're kind of in a pandemic, so it's not the greatest, but I think the guys, we're just very thankful that we get to play this game. So
How have your guys done this season, and especially with all the COVID stuff going on?
yeah, we got a shortened season. We lost in the championship, so we got like a district championship, and that's about the only thing that we got. I mean, we played our league, and then a shortened part league, and then our playoffs, and we ended up losing in the championship. I was telling the guys, I was like, this is the bad part of baseball, because we crushed the ball. I mean, we hit the ball hard. And you can do all that perfect, and you still hit it right at somebody, and you're out. And we probably had 10 of those. So I was like, this is the frustrating part sometimes for it. And I feel your pain. But I wanted them to know that it wasn't a lack of effort. And that's what they did all season. They just come out and rolled with the punches. So just unfortunate that we didn't get a chance to, one of those just drop, because it would have made a difference.
All right. And then one last question for you. Just looking back over your playing career, your coaching career, everything, what would you say is like one moment that really is always going to stick out prominently in your mind forever?
Man, the one that always comes back. I mean, I was on the baseball field when Mariano Rivera threw his last pitch, and I'm only, I'm one of 8 that are able to say that. And at the time when he retired, and I knew he was retired, I said, "You watch, he will be the first 100% vote." And that's a big deal. I mean, it never happened before. And just to be able to say that I was on the field and actually just know him and just be a teammate, I think that's pretty special, just because that's a unique club, I guess.
So thank you, Lyle, for being on the show with us. I really appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun to rehash some of those great memories.
All right, that's Lyle Overbay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And that will do it for the first episode of the 27th inning. Thanks again to Lyle for being the first of hopefully many to appear on this show. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, and if you have suggestions for future guests you'd like to hear from, or questions that you'd like them to answer, you can send me a message on Twitter at Michael Grinnell. That's Michael, Grennell. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.